Series, Popular Culture and Philosophy. Philip K. Dick and Philosophy. Do Androids Have Kindred Spirits? Volume 63 in the series, Popular Culture and Philosophy. Published 2011. Through a Screen Darkly. Chapter 1. Hollywood Doesn't Know Dick. Ethan Mills. Some of the biggest Hollywood blockbusters of the last few decades have been based on the work of Philip K. Dick. Blade Runner, Total Recall, Minority Report, The Adjustment Bureau, just to name the biggest and most blockbusting of them. Like many Dick fans, I was dazzled by some of these movies before I ever picked up Dick's short stories and novels. But when I found the original stories, I noticed something was amiss. I felt like Deckard, Quayle, or Anderton, something weird was going on. And it wasn't just that the book is better than the movie, as that pretentious friend is always telling you. This wasn't just a matter of details or minor plot points. Something essential had been lost in translation from print to film. But what is this something? Could there be some Hollywood conspiracy out to get Dick's loyal readers? Would it be safer to stay in the theater or on my couch enjoying the movies? And who the hell do I think I am, anyway, going around uncovering plots involving dead science fiction writers and Hollywood studios? But I couldn't stop investigating. So I grabbed my trench coat, put on a brooding face, and went in search of my bounty. My investigation revealed that, since Hollywood began plundering Dick's work, fans have complained about everything from Deckard's lack of uncertainty about his humanity in Blade Runner to the sappy nonsense at the end of Minority Report. You might chalk this up to the lameness of studio executives out to make a quick buck, but my investigation has revealed that this reflects a deeper tension between two philosophical views about the human condition. We can conceive it for ourselves wholesale. One of these philosophical views is what I call the Holly worldview. Some worldviews give a place for genuine free will, unconstrained by cause and effect, while others decry this as an illusion and claim that human actions, including our science, thoughts and feelings, are subject to cause and effect like everything else. Whether your worldview is philosophically well-founded or whether it's the result of false memories implanted by Recall Incorporated, worldviews are like assholes, everyone has one. According to the Holly worldview, good defeats evil, free will secures the triumph of the human spirit, and our heroes discover knowledge of reality and virtue, all before the credits roll. The Holly worldview says that the universe is a nice place, although you have to defend it against the occasional villain. Movies must have happy endings. Villains must be punished and heroes must learn valuable lessons. It probably wouldn't hurt, either, if the heroes find true love. Opposed to this, there's the Dickian worldview, a universe of paranoia, ignorance, and lack of true freedom. Dick's heroes think someone's out to get them. And they're right. They consider the possibility that everything they think they know is wrong. They only occasionally discover the truth. Dick's heroes wonder if they make any genuinely free decisions. They accept that they don't. The Dickian worldview says that the universe is generally hostile to our Hollywood aspirations. A happy ending for Dick is often overcoming a small obstacle while coming to accept some inevitable and possibly depressing fact about our place in the universe. My guess, based on meticulous armchair sociology, is that most Americans prefer the Holly worldview, which explains why Hollywood alters Dick's original vision. Are there good rear sons to support the Holly worldview, or should philosophical bounty hunters retire it? Let's think about a way to answer that by investigating how Dick challenges two tenets of the Holly worldview: free will and knowledge. Free will at the box office. Despite my complaints, I think Minority Report is a pretty cool movie. The cinematography is beautiful. The high-tech stuff is sleek and shiny, Apple products, still cool in 2054, but there's enough gritty stuff to seem real. Tom Cruise, despite his antics off-screen, does a great job playing Anderton. Steven Spielberg is the most successful director in Hollywood for good reason. Screenwriters John Cohen and Scott Frank added a compelling backstory for Anderton and linked the movie to debates about civil liberties and preemptive action going on when the movie was released in 2002. I'm fine with all that. My complaints are philosophical. In the short story, The Minority Report, the precogs predict that Anderton will murder Leopold Kaplan, a retired general. Of course, in true Dick fashion, there's a conspiracy. The military wants to put pre-crime out of business. The philosophically interesting part is that there are 3 minority reports. Each precog has a slightly different prediction incorporating different data. The last prediction included the data that Anderton knew of the earlier predictions. The first and last precog predictions said that Anderton would kill Kaplan, which created an illusion of a majority report, although they disagreed about details. Anderton does kill Kaplan exactly as the last precog vision predicted, and he does so fully conscious that he is saving pre-crime and preventing a military coup. Anderton is content with this state of affairs, and neither he nor his loyal wife complain one bit as he accepts his punishment of exile to the colonies in the outer solar system. In Spielberg's movie, Minority Report, Anderton's supposed to kill some random guy named Leo Crow. Anderton steals one of the precogs, Agatha. When Anderton goes to interrogate Crow, Agatha tells Anderton, "You still have a choice." The others never saw their future. Crow claims he murdered Anderton's son 6 years earlier, which drives Anderton to want to murder Crow. There was no minority report. He is going to kill Crow. Agatha feebly gasps, "You can choose." Anderton doesn't kill Crow after all in an apparent triumph of free will. Human dignity is saved later when Anderton gets pre-crime shut down. The Adjustment Bureau involves a similar shift from story to film. In Dick's story, Adjustment Team, an employee at a real estate company, Ed Fletcher, learns that our lives are adjusted by a team of shadowy men, and at least one shadowy dog. When the team catches him, Fletcher agrees that these adjustments are all for the greater good and says he won't tell anyone about the adjustment team. They let him go and even send a fake vacuum cleaner salesman to distract his wife from asking questions about where he's been. In George Nolfi's movie, The Adjustment Bureau, a politician named David Norris, Matt Damon, learns about a group of guys in Mad Men outfits who continually change the course of events to go according to the plan. Unfortunately, no dogs are involved. Things get supernatural when it turns out that the Adjustment Bureau employees may be angels who work for the chairman, a ridiculously thinly disguised metaphor for God. Things get Hollywood when an Adjustment Bureau employee named Harry, Anthony Mackie, helps David and Elise, Emily Blunt, to be together even though it goes against the plan. Their love teaches the chairman a lesson, whereupon they are granted freedom from the Adjustment Bureau's meddling in a triumph for both romance and free will. In each case, the short story exemplifies the Dickian worldview, in which real free will is doubtful, while the movie insists on the Holly worldview in which the hero's free will secures our human dignity. Maybe the screenwriters thought the original stories were too hard to tell in movie form, but I suspect a clash between the Dickian worldview and the Holly worldview is the real culprit. The Dickian worldview wouldn't work in a Hollywood movie, meaning less box office revenue. This isn't just an economic matter, but a philosophical point. People don't like their belief in free will questioned. But why not? And why on Earth, or Mars, would Dick question something as obvious as free will? Determinism's bounty on free will. Dick's doubts stem from a view known as determinism. Determinism is frequently and incorrectly confused with fate, or the idea that some beings, usually supernatural, are controlling your life. The movie, The Adjustment Bureau, is really about fate, since the chairman dispatches men with magic moleskin notebooks to tinker with our lives. The movie is a mess, philosophically speaking, but it seems as if humans have free will that angels continually work to circumvent. On the other hand, determinism is a non-supernatural theory that says that, given the way things are now, there is only one possible future. The story, Adjustment Team, is determinist. If they make certain adjustments, then the consequences they predict will necessarily occur. They're not quashing the free will we would otherwise have as in the movie, they're setting up the if side of an if-then sentence. Another way to explain determinism is that every event in the universe is determined by the laws of nature. This makes sense. Stuff doesn't just randomly happen. It follows a predictable order. If it didn't, science, and even more sadly, science fiction, would be a waste of time. If John Anderton didn't think the laws of physics were regular enough that the force created by igniting gunpowder would cause a bullet to fly out of the barrel of his gun, he wouldn't have bothered to want to shoot anybody. Where things get weird is applying determinism to every event in the universe, even human actions. Anderton's actions are events in the universe, aren't they? Suppose you knew everything about Anderton, his past, his current brain states, his tendencies, what he ate for lunch, and so forth. If you knew all that, couldn't you predict his actions? Don't we predict each other's actions all the time? You might say that our predictions aren't always correct, but a determinist would reply that this is due to a lack of knowledge. We're talking about reality here. Just because we don't know what the causes are doesn't mean they're not there. If hypothetically you could know everything about Anderton and predict his actions like a precog, doesn't it make sense that his actions are the inevitable result of the sum total of all the causes leading up to those actions? Why would you think he could have done otherwise? Where is there room for this mysterious freedom? Think carefully about these questions. I promise if you really understand determinism, it will blow your mind. Like cheese, determinism comes in hard and soft varieties. Hard determinists rule out freedom and moral responsibility. If you weren't in control of your choices, but rather your choices were caused by everything from your brain states to the bad noodles you ate, you're no better off than an android with false memories. You're not really in control, so blaming or praising you in any moral sense would be like blaming the sands of Mars for being red. Soft determinists, on the other hand, think determinism and freedom are compatible, hence, they're also called compatibilists. David Hume, for example, points out that if we didn't predict people's behavior, the very idea of laws would be ridiculous. If we didn't think stop signs would cause people to stop, why have them? If pre-crime laws didn't stop murder, how would Anderton have a job? Soft determinists think our usual notion of free will is unnecessarily bizarre. You don't need free actions to spring from some uncaused cause. This is actually a pretty mysterious idea. What's the difference between an uncaused cause and stuff just randomly happening? We don't say that a computer running a random number generator is free. You don't want your decisions to be random, you want them to be yours. The soft determinist alternative says that a free action has the right kind of cause, it is unconstrained and flows from your character. Anderton's choice to run was caused, but it wasn't caused by someone else, it was caused by Anderton's character, meaning his general tendencies as a person. His character was in turn caused by lots of things. No uncaused cause is needed. Most people besides philosophers seem to think that we need the traditional idea of free will to secure the basis of morality and human dignity, making determinism a big threat. I disagree. I think soft determinism gives us all the freedom we really need. More people would agree with me if they read Philip K. Dick carefully enough. I'll give some reasons for all this later, but first let's look at another aspect of the Dickian worldview. Skepticism for fun and profit. Philosophical skepticism starts with a simple question: how do you know stuff you think you know? How do you know other people or androids have minds? How do you know the world exists outside your mind? How can you tell real memories from fake ones, real people from androids? The idea that you don't know the answers to such questions is called philosophical skepticism. The Holly worldview says that we can know the answers. But Dick has his doubts. Blade Runner is an awesome movie. It was groundbreaking in its day and it's still amazing 30 years later. As with Minority Report, my complaints are philosophical. In the US theatrical cut, there's a happy ending in which Deckard drives into the countryside with Rachel. There's little indication that it's possible Deckard could be a replicant. How Dickian. The existence of the director's cut, 1992, and final cut, 2007, indicates that director Ridley Scott wasn't happy either. He removed the happy ending and added a weird unicorn dream sequence, which many people, including Scott himself, see as an indication that Deckard is really a replicant. The closest we get to anything explicit is when Rachel asks Deckard if he's taken the Voigtkampf test himself, but he's asleep and doesn't hear her. On the other hand, Dick's novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, quite explicitly raises the question of whether Deckard might be an android. In Chapter 9, the android Luba Luft tells Deckard directly, "You must be an android." She presses the issue asking if his memories of taking the Voigtkampf test are false or if he could be an android who killed a human and took his place. He explicitly denies all this and refuses to take the test, leaving the question of his humanity unresolved not only for readers but for himself. Nonetheless, most people think the novel supports the idea that Deckard is human, since he's eventually able to feel empathy for living creatures. This is something androids apparently can't do, as when the android priest remorselessly mutilates a spider. I'm not so easily convinced. Once Luft brings up the android possibility so explicitly, there's no way to rule it out. This is why philosophical skepticism is such a problem. Any evidence you appeal to can be called into question. Sure, Deckard can feel empathy, but how do we know he's not a new model of empathic android? Sure, he thinks he can tell a Nexus 6 from a human with the Voigt-Kampff test, but does he really know that this test itself is accurate? Give all the evidence you want. Some smug skeptic will give you reason to doubt that it's evidence at all. This leaves us with an inability to know one way or the other whether Deckard is human or android. Unlike most people, I think the novel is more properly skeptical than even the directors or final cuts. Scott obviously wants us to believe that Deckard really is a replicant, thus giving an answer to the question of whether Deckard is a replicant. On the other hand, Dick brings up both the android and the human possibilities in such a way that any possible evidence is entirely compatible with both possibilities. The Q's tie-on of whether Deckard is human or android can't really be answered by any evidence, not by origami unicorns and not by empathy boxes. The inability to give any satisfactory answer is what skepticism is all about. Dick pushes skepticism to dizzying extremes in the novel Ubik. Ubik is one seriously weird book and my favorite Dick novel. There are psychic agencies competing with each other's precogs and anti-precogs. There's Half-Life in which you can talk to the dead who exist in suspended animation. Even the characters' outfits are crazy. For example, fuchsia pedal pushers, pink yak fur slippers, a snakeskin sleeveless blouse, and a ribbon in his waist-length dyed white hair. Philosophical skepticism appears in full force in the second half of the book. The characters are unsure about almost everything: what year it is, why consumer products are regressing into older products, why the money in their wallets is changing, and why people are randomly disintegrating. They don't even know if they themselves are alive or dead. They receive a message apparently from their dead boss: all of you are dead. I am alive. Dick wrote a screenplay for Ubik and a movie is supposed to be on the way. I hope they treat it with care. I'd hate to see Ubik's wild skepticism domesticated by the Hollyworld view. What's so bad about determinism? Many people consider a world of determinism and skepticism depressing, but Dick suggests it's not so bad. People are afraid of determinism and skepticism because they hold the Hollyworld view. Such fears are less reasonable once this worldview loosens its grip on us. Dick is a soft determinist, since he thinks freedom and determinism are compatible. In the story, The Minority Report, Anderton realizes his action was determined, but he is nonetheless free and responsible, since his action was unconstrained and flowed from his character. This explains why Anderton is untroubled by the fact that he acted exactly as the last precog predicted. Dick's point is that we shouldn't worry about determinism even if the precogs did exist. He even suggests that if you like what the adjustment team is doing, there's no reason to be upset by their meddling. In making these points, Dick joins a distinguished list of philosophers including the ancient Stoics, Baruch Spinoza, David Hume, John Stuart Mill, and Daniel Dennett. This group has diverse views on other matters, but they all agree with Dick that determinism is nothing much to worry about. What's so bad about skepticism? Skepticism is usually thought of as a bad thing. Dick's paranoia, for instance, grows out of his skepticism. You never know when they're out to get you. Even if you're not as paranoid as Philip K. Dick, skepticism can make you pretty upset. We like to think of ourselves as people who know things. You're probably reading this book to learn something about Dick and philosophy, that is, to know more stuff. If skepticism were true, there would be a tragic mismatch between how you think of yourself, someone who knows stuff, and how you really are, someone who knows very little. And that would be almost as upsetting as Dickian paranoia. But maybe skepticism isn't all bad. In chapter 16 of Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Rachel asks Deckard, "Have you ever made love to an android before?" She implores Deckard, "Don't pause and be philosophical, because from a philosophical standpoint it's dreary. For us both." Maybe this dreariness is a result of skepticism, but I'd say it's a result of the belief that Rachel isn't a real woman. She tells him not to dwell on it. Dick rarely gives voice to the wisdom of his female characters, Genius that he was a pretty sexist writer, more likely to describe a woman's body than her thoughts. I think Rachel is on to something. In modern times, skepticism is a problem, but for ancient Greek skeptics such as Sextus Empiricus, skepticism wasn't a problem. It was the solution. In the ancient world, skepticism was a way of life. The key to happiness is to suspend judgment on philosophical matters, to give up wanting to know those things, since that desire causes mental disturbance. Suspending judgment is like saying, I neither confirm nor deny those allegations. In order to suspend judgment, Sextus Empiricus suggests that you find equally powerful arguments for and against a particular view on philosophical topics such as cause and effect, the existence of God, etc. Ancient skeptics would say we should find both the pro and con arguments on whether Deckard is an android or whether the characters in audiobook are alive or dead. Doing so leads to suspension of judgment and ultimately to mental tranquility. I think there were similar skeptics in ancient India such as Arno-mk, Rajuna and Jr. Although my interpretations here are controversial among people who study Indian philosophy. Like their Greek counterparts, Arno-mk, Rajuna and Jr., as I thought the key to happiness was to give up wanting to know the answers to philosophical questions. But they were a little more radical. Instead of using equally powerful arguments to suspend judgment, they used philosophy to uproot the very impulse to do philosophy. They did this by demonstrating that all answers to a philosophical question lead to unwanted consequences such as internal contradictions. They used this method, for example, to point out the inherent flaws in theories advocated by philosophers in ancient India about the means of knowledge. Arno-mk Arjuna was a Buddhist who saw this as leading to non-attachment to philosophical views, even Buddhist views. Jr. as I was a non-religious philosopher who thought he could destroy any philosophical basis of religion in order to live a happy, down-to-earth sort of life. They would agree that when it comes to Deckard's humanity or the alive or dead issue of audiobook, you should find contradictions in all theories on the matter. By doing so, you'll stop worrying about it. Greek and Indian skeptics see their philosophical practice as part of a way of life. Most Dick fans are bothered by questions such as whether Anderton has free will or whether Deckard is an android. But ancient skeptics would use their arguments to get us to stop trying to believe anything about these and other philosophical issues. They want to replace all the angst, worry and dogmatic attachment that philosophy can create with a bemused shrug. Greek skeptics describe it like this: imagine the puzzling feeling you would have if asked about whether the number of stars in the sky is odd or even, and then try to cultivate that feeling about every philosophical issue. The way of life described by skeptics in ancient Greece and India is very strange. I couldn't do it all the time. Few people could. Nonetheless, the lesson of ancient skepticism is that sometimes the best way to stop worrying is to stop wanting what you worry about. A happy ending. Dick didn't think skepticism was a way of life, but he provides some of what we need to deal with our fears. We can take his paranoia and fear as cathartic, even if he didn't. Once we get over it, we just might be better off. Determinism may be true. We may not know some of the things we want to know. But this isn't much to worry about after all. I should come clean and say that neither Dick's nor my investigations have discovered any definitive answers on these issues. I doubt anybody will solve the problems of skepticism and freedom versus determinism anytime soon, but Dick's philosophical journeys help us face our fears to tackle these questions in an honest and open way. Good philosophy, like good science fiction, rarely gives us the answers we want. It usually leads to more questions. But maybe a little philosophy bounty hunting can retire a few of our unfounded fears.